The wind howled across the Arctic research station like a hungry beast, driving sheets of snow against reinforced windows. Nikolai Petrov stood at the observation deck, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of monitoring equipment. 20 years of Arctic rescue operations had taught him to read the weather like a book, and tonight's story spelled trouble. The emergency alert blared through the station's speakers, jolting the skeleton crew into action. Nikolai's fingers flew across the console, bringing up the distress signal's coordinates. It originated from deep within the Svalbard glacier system, in a region so treacherous even the most experienced explorers avoided it. "Sir, temperature's dropping to -60, Junior Specialist Finn called out, his voice tight with concern. "The storm's getting worse. Search and rescue protocols suggest waiting until—" "Someone's out there," Nikolai cut him off, already pulling on his thermal suit. "They won't survive until morning." His movements were practiced, efficient, born from countless missions where minutes meant the difference between life and death. The rescue vehicle carved through the storm like a steel beast, its reinforced tracks gripping the ice. Nikolai piloted it with precision, eyes fixed on the navigation system. The distress signal pulsed stronger now, leading them deeper into the glacier's maze. 3 kilometers to target, Finn announced, monitoring the equipment. "But sir, these readings, they're unlike anything I've seen. The energy signature is—" A massive crack split the air like thunder. The vehicle lurched, ice splintering beneath its tracks. Nikolai's hands flew across the controls, but it was too late. The ground gave way, sending them sliding toward a newly formed crevasse. "Brace!" Nikolai shouted, engaging the emergency anchors. The vehicle screamed to a halt mere meters from the abyss, its nose hanging over the edge. Through the windshield, powerful flood's lights illuminated something that made both men freeze. Embedded in the ice wall of the crevasse, a faint blue glow pulsed rhythmically. It wasn't any standard emergency beacon Nikolai had ever seen. The light seemed to dance through the ice, creating patterns that defied natural explanation. "Stay here," Nikolai ordered, securing his climbing gear. "If I'm not back in 30 minutes, follow emergency protocols." He ignored Finn's protests, knowing every second counted. The descent into the crevasse was treacherous. Ice crystals bit into his face despite the protective mask, and the wind threatened to tear him from his anchors. But Nikolai had long ago learned to transform fear into focus. Each movement was calculated, each grip tested before committing his weight. The blue glow grew stronger as he descended, casting ethereal shadows across the ice walls. At 50 meters down, he found its source. The sight made him question everything he thought he knew about the Arctic. A woman lay suspended in the ice, encased in what appeared to be a suit of technology far beyond anything he'd ever encountered. The material shifted and flowed like liquid metal, yet maintained its form. More incredibly, it seemed to be protecting her from the killing cold. Nikolai's trained eye caught the signs of life, slight movements, the faint fog of breath against her faceplate. She was alive, but trapped in what looked like some kind of stasis. His rescue operations had never prepared him for anything like this. Time was running out. The storm above was intensifying, and the ice around them groaned with increasing frequency. Using his plasma cutter, Nikolai began the delicate process of freeing her from the ice. Each cut had to be precise, too aggressive, and he might harm her, too cautious, and they'd both die in this frozen tomb. The ice finally gave way, and the woman slumped into his arms. Her suit hummed with energy, its surface rippling at his touch. Up close, he could see patterns and symbols etched into the material, unlike any language he'd encountered. The ascent was a nightmare. The woman's suit, though seemingly advanced, added considerable weight. Each meter gained was a battle against exhaustion and the worsening storm. Nikolai's muscles screamed in protest, but he pushed through the pain, driven by the mystery of his discovery and the fundamental instinct that had defined his career, the need to save lives. They barely made it back to the vehicle. Finn helped pull them in just as another section of the glacier collapsed, sending thunderous echoes through the frozen wasteland. As they sped back toward the research station, Nikolai studied their unconscious passenger. Who was she? Where had she come from? The technology she wore suggested possibilities that threatened to shatter his understanding of the world. But those questions would have to wait. Right now, his priority was keeping her alive. What Nikolai couldn't know, as they raced through the Arctic night, was that his act of rescue would trigger a chain of events that would change not just his life, but the fate of two civilizations. The woman he'd saved carried secrets that would soon draw him into a conflict beyond anything he could imagine, forcing him to question everything he thought he knew about the world beneath the ice. The research station grew visible through the storm, its lights a beacon of safety in the frozen chaos. But as Nikolai would soon discover, safety was an illusion. The real danger was just beginning. The research station's medical bay hummed with activity as Dr. Alina Volkov examined their mysterious patient. Nikolai watched from the observation window, still in his thermal gear, as the doctor's instruments passed over the woman's strange suit. The material continued to pulse with an inner light, defying all attempts to analyze it. "This shouldn't be possible," Alina muttered, adjusting her instruments. "The suit's maintaining a perfect homeostatic environment. The technology is decades, maybe centuries, beyond anything we have." She glanced at Nikolai, her expression a mixture of awe and concern. "Where exactly did you find her?" Before Nikolai could answer, the suit's surface rippled like mercury. The woman's eyes snapped open, eyes of such a deep violet they seemed to contain depths of their own. She sat up with fluid grace, her movements too precise to be entirely human. "I am Captain Zena of the Deep City Nautilum," she announced in perfect English, though her accent carried strange undertones that seemed to resonate in their bones. "And you have no idea what you've done by bringing me here." Nikolai stepped forward, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "I'm Nikolai Petrov. We found you trapped in the ice. You were sending out a distress signal." "No," Zena cut him off, her expression darkening. "That wasn't a distress signal. It was a warning." She swung her legs off the examination table, the suit adapting to her movements like a second skin. "By bringing me to the surface, you've broken the seal that kept them contained. They'll be coming now." The lights in the medical bay flickered, and the temperature dropped suddenly. Frost began creeping across the windows despite the heating system working at full capacity. Alina's instruments went haywire, their displays showing impossible readings. "Who's coming?" Nikolai demanded, but he already knew they were about to find out. The entire station shuddered as something massive moved beneath the ice. Zena's suit rippled again, forming complex patterns that glowed with increasing intensity. "The frozen ones, ancient creatures we've kept imprisoned for millennia. My people, the Nautilians, we're not just an advanced civilization. We're guardians, protecting both our world and yours from what lies between." Security alerts blared throughout the station. On the monitors, they watched as massive shapes moved through the darkness beneath the ice sheet. They were unlike anything Nikolai had ever seen, part creature, part crystalline structure, as if winter itself had taken form and developed a hunger. "Your rescue mission, though noble, broke the containment field," Zena explained, her voice tight with urgency. "I was part of that field maintaining the barrier. Now the frozen ones are awakening, and they'll seek to reclaim what they lost eons ago, the surface world." The station's chief of security, Victor Raisin, burst into the medical bay, his face ashen. "You need to see this," he said, activating the main screen. The satellite feed showed thermal images of massive cold spots spreading from their location, growing larger by the minute. Temperatures within these areas dropped to levels that would flash freeze any living thing. "How do we stop them?" Nikolai asked, turning to Zena. His years of rescue experience told him they were facing an extinction-level event if these creatures reached populated areas. Zena's expression was grim. "The only way is to restore the containment field, but to do that I need to reach the deep city." She paused, studying Nikolai with those otherworldly eyes. "Your surface technology won't be enough. We'll need to use the ancient networks, tunnels, and passages that run beneath the ice sheet. But they're treacherous, filled with traps and guardians meant to keep surface dwellers out." "Then you'll need a guide who knows ice," Nikolai stated firmly. It wasn't a question. After 20 years of Arctic rescue operations, he knew the frozen landscape better than anyone. Even if these tunnels were alien to him, the principles of survival would be the same. Zena seemed to measure him with her gaze, perhaps seeing beyond his physical appearance to something deeper. Finally, she nodded. "Your skills might prove useful, but understand this. If we fail, it won't just be your research station at risk. The frozen ones will spread across your world, turning it into an eternal winter that no spring will ever thaw." The station shuddered again, more violently this time. Through the windows, they could see the aurora borealis twisting into unnatural patterns, responding to energies never meant to be unleashed. In the distance, something that looked like a mountain of ice was moving, rising. "We need to go now," Zena declared, her suit reconfiguring itself into something more suited for combat. "The longer we wait, the stronger they become." Elena grabbed Nikolai's arm as he turned to leave. "The human body isn't designed for what you're about to do," she warned. "The pressures, the temperatures, it's suicide." Zena placed a hand on Nikolai's shoulder, and he felt a sudden warmth spread from the contact. Her suit extended tendrils that began forming a protective layer around him. "I can protect him to a degree. His life signs will be linked to my suit systems." As the protective layer covered him, Nikolai felt a connection forming, not just to the suit but to Zena herself. He could sense her determination, her fear, and something else, hope. Despite the gravity of their situation, she believed they could succeed. "We'll take the emergency exit through the lower levels," Nikolai said, already moving. "It's closest to where I found you. If these tunnels of yours are anywhere, they'll be accessible from there." As they hurried through the station's corridors, passing frightened research staff and security personnel preparing for the unknown, Nikolai realized that his life of rescue operations had led him to this moment. But this time, he wasn't just saving one life. He was trying to save every life on Earth. The last thing he saw before they descended into the depths was the sky above the station turning an impossible shade of crystalline blue, as ancient powers stirred from their long slumber. Whatever happened next would either be the end of everything he knew or the beginning of something entirely new. The doors to the lower level opened, revealing a world of darkness and ice. Somewhere in that darkness lay the path to the deep city, and their only hope of stopping the apocalypse that was literally freezing its way across the surface world. The descent into the ancient tunnels beneath the ice sheet was like entering another world. Zena's suit provided illumination, casting prismatic light across crystalline walls that seemed to hold memories of forgotten ages. Nikolai moved carefully, his enhanced senses, courtesy of Zena's technology, detecting subtle changes in the ice that would have been invisible to normal human perception. "Your people built all this?" Nikolai asked, noting the geometric precision of the tunnel structures that couldn't have been natural. They had been traveling downward for hours, the temperature dropping beyond what any normal equipment could measure. "Not built," Zena corrected, her voice resonating strangely in the frozen corridor. "Grew. The deep city grows its structures using biomechanical processes we've perfected over millennia. These tunnels are living things in their way." She paused, placing her hand against a wall. "They remember." As if in response to her touch, patterns of light rippled through the ice, revealing glimpses of events long past, shadows of battles fought against creatures of frost and darkness. Nikolai saw armies wielding weapons of light, pushing back beings of pure cold that devoured everything in their path. "The first war," Zena explained softly. "When the frozen ones first emerged from the void between stars. My ancestors drove them back, contained them. We've stood guard ever since, protecting both our worlds from their return." A deep rumble shook the tunnel, and fragments of ice rained down from above. Through his enhanced senses, Nikolai could feel the vibrations of massive movements far above them. The frozen ones were spreading, their influence growing stronger. "We're not going to make it in time," he realized, checking the data feed from the surface that Zena's suit was somehow still receiving. "The freeze is spreading too fast. Moscow will be hit within hours." Zena's expression hardened. "There's a faster way, but—" She hesitated, studying him with those violet eyes. "It requires complete trust. The pathway I'm thinking of, it's sacred to my people. No surface dweller has ever been permitted to use it." "And if we don't use it?" "Millions die." Nikolai met her gaze steadily. "Then we use it. Whatever consequences there are, I'll face them." Zena nodded and pressed her hand against a seemingly solid wall. Ancient symbols blazed to life, and the ice parted like liquid, revealing a vertical shaft that seemed to drop into infinity. "The light fall," she said. "A quantum tunnel connecting directly to the heart of the deep city, but the transition, it will not be pleasant." Before Nikolai could respond, she grabbed his hand and pulled him into the shaft. They fell into light and madness. His enhanced senses exploded with input. He saw time itself bending around them, felt the weight of oceans overhead, experienced moments of history compressed into seconds. Through it all, Zena's grip anchored him to reality. They emerged into a vast chamber that defied comprehension. The deep city of Nautilum spread out before them, a masterpiece of organic architecture and living light. Massive structures of crystal and bioengineered coral rose like mountains, their surfaces alive with bioluminescence. Water and air intermingled in impossible ways, creating spaces where both could exist simultaneously. But the beauty was marred by signs of crisis. Alarms echoed through the city, and Nikolai saw thousands of Nautilians, beings similar to Xena in appearance but wildly diverse in their biological adaptations, rushing to battle stations. "Captain Xena," a voice boomed across the chamber. A tall figure approached, his suit more elaborate than Xena's, marked with symbols of authority. "You dare bring a surface dweller to the heart? This is sacrilege." "High Commander Thalos," Xena addressed him formally but with an edge of defiance. "The frozen ones are free. The surface world faces extinction. We need the Aegis Protocol." The commander's face darkened. "The containment breach has already been noted. The Council has activated the Purge Protocol instead. We will save our city by severing all connections to the surface. The ice sheet will be collapsed, burying the frozen ones and the surface world under millions of tons of ice." "You can't," Nikolai stepped forward, ignoring the weapons that immediately trained on him. "There are billions of innocent people up there." "Better billions than all," Thalos replied coldly. "The frozen ones cannot be allowed to reach our city. Once the surface is buried in ice, they will be contained again." Xena moved to stand beside Nikolai. "There's another way. The Aegis Protocol would require sacrificing half our city's power core. It would take generations to recover." "But your people would keep their honor," Nikolai interjected, his voice cutting through the chamber. "You call yourselves guardians, but you're ready to commit genocide to save yourselves. Where's the honor in that?" A murmur ran through the gathered Nautilians. Thalos's expression wavered slightly. "Listen to him," Xena pressed. "I've seen his world, felt his memories through the suit's connection. Surface dwellers have changed since the ancient times. They're capable of greatness, of sacrifice, of love. They deserve the chance to prove it." The chamber shook violently. On the massive viewing screens around them, they could see the frozen one's influence creeping deeper, threatening both worlds now. Thalos looked at the displays, then back at Nikolai and Xena. In that moment, he seemed to age centuries. "The Aegis Protocol requires two focal points," he said finally. "One here in the city, one on the surface. Even if we agreed, how could it be coordinated?" Nikolai activated the data feed from his suit, showing the layout of the research station. "Here," he pointed to the central core. "The station's power system could be converted. I know its systems better than anyone." "It would need to be activated simultaneously," Xena added. "A millisecond's delay would cause it to fail." "Then I'll go back up," Nikolai stated firmly. "You activate it here, I'll handle the surface." "The transit alone would take too long," Thalos objected. Xena straightened. "Not through the light fall, I can get him back." For a long moment, Thalos studied them both. Around them, the city's alarms grew more urgent as the crisis deepened. Finally, he nodded. "Do it. But know this, surface dweller, if you fail, if your timing is off by even a fraction of a second, both our worlds are doomed." As Xena led him back to the light fall, Nikolai felt the weight of billions of lives settling onto his shoulders. He had started this journey to save one life. Now he was trying to save two entire civilizations. "Are you sure about this?" Xena asked softly as they reached the quantum tunnel. "The return journey will be worse, much worse." Nikolai thought of his years of rescue work, of all the lives he'd saved and lost. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The light engulfed them again, and Nikolai began his race against time, carrying with him the hopes of two worlds and the knowledge that somewhere, deep beneath the ice, an ancient civilization was counting on him to prove that humanity deserved to survive. The research station was barely recognizable when Nikolai emerged from the light fall. Ice had claimed most of the structure, transforming corridors into crystalline tunnels and rooms into frozen caverns. The few emergency lights still functioning cast eerie shadows through the translucent walls. "Life signs detected in the central hub," Xena's voice echoed in his mind through their suit connection. "Your people are survivors, Nikolai. They've managed to hold out." He moved through the frozen facility with practiced efficiency, the enhanced abilities from Xena's suit allowing him to navigate terrain that would have been impossible for a normal human. The temperature had dropped far below anything Earth's technology could measure, yet he felt only a mild chill. The central hub's reinforced doors were sealed with ice. Nikolai placed his hand against the surface, and nanites from his suit began eating through the barrier. Inside, he found the remaining station crew huddled around makeshift heating units. Dr. Alina Volkov looked up as he entered, her eyes widening at his transformed appearance. "Nikolai, we thought you were dead when you disappeared into that tunnel. The things we've seen," she shuddered. "The creatures in the ice, they've been testing our defenses, learning." "They're intelligent," he confirmed, moving to the station's main power core. "Ancient beings that remember when Earth was young, but we have a way to stop them. I need access to the core's mainframe." Alina didn't hesitate. After what they'd witnessed, nothing seemed impossible anymore. She entered her override codes, giving Nikolai full access to the station's systems. "The frozen ones are converging on your location," Zena warned through their link. "They sense what we're attempting. Hurry." Nikolai's fingers flew across the controls, reconfiguring the power systems according to the specifications burned into his mind during the light fall transit. The core's fusion reactor would need to be pushed far beyond its designed limits, synchronized perfectly with the deep city's power grid. A massive impact shook the station. Through the reinforced windows, they watched as a frozen one emerged from the storm, a towering crystalline entity that seemed to be made from the essence of winter itself. Its presence alone caused the air to crystallize. "Nikolai," Alina's voice was tight with fear, "whatever you're planning, do it fast. The main structure won't take much more of this." "Aegis protocol initialization commencing," Zena reported. "Deep city power grid at maximum capacity. Synchronization in 60 seconds. The creature outside struck again, this time punching through the outer wall of an adjacent section. Emergency bulkheads slammed down, but the temperature in the hub began to plummet. Ice crystals formed in the air, dancing like deadly stars. 45 seconds to synchronization. Another impact. The hub's reinforced windows began to crack. Through them, Nikolai could see more crystalline forms emerging from the storm, drawn to the power building within the station. 30 seconds. The station's power core began to whine as it was pushed beyond its limits. Warning alerts flashed across every screen, systems screaming that catastrophic failure was imminent. 20 seconds. "The containment field is failing," Alina shouted over the noise. "We're losing structural integrity." 15 seconds. The windows shattered. Hurricane-force winds filled with razor-sharp ice crystals howled through the hub. The crew took cover, but Nikolai stood his ground at the controls, protected by Zena's technology. 10 seconds. A massive crystalline arm punched through the ceiling, reaching for the power core. The temperature dropped so low that normal matter began to break down at the molecular level. 5 seconds. "Nikolai," Zena's voice was strained, "the synchronization has to be perfect, if you're off by even a millisecond." "I know." He could feel the connection between them strengthening, their minds linking more deeply through the quantum-entangled suits. In that moment, he could see through her eyes in the deep city, feel the massive energies building in both locations. 3. The frozen one's arm was inches from the core. 2. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath. 1. Nikolai closed his eyes, feeling the perfect moment approach like a wave about to break. Now, he activated the protocol at the exact instant Zena did the same in the deep city. The power core erupted with impossible energies, synchronized across quantum dimensions with its counterpart miles below. Space itself buckled as 2 points of unimaginable power linked across the divide. The frozen one screamed, a sound that existed somewhere between the shattering of glaciers and the death of stars. The quantum-linked power cores created a new kind of containment field, one that didn't just imprison the ancient beings, but rewrote the very laws of physics around them. Through his connection with Zena, Nikolai watched as the creatures were pulled into a space between spaces, trapped in a prison built from pure energy and quantum mechanics. The storm above the station calmed, the unnatural cold beginning to recede. But something was wrong. The power levels weren't stabilizing as planned. "Nikolai," Zena's voice was urgent, "the containment field is starting to collapse. There's too much feedback between the cores." He looked at the readings and realized what had to be done. If we disconnect the cores now, the frozen ones will break free again. But if we maintain the connection until the field is fully formed. "The cores will go critical," Zena finished. Both facilities will be destroyed. Elena grabbed his arm. Nikolai, no, there has to be another way. But he could see the truth in the numbers scrolling across his display. More importantly, he could feel it through his connection with Xena. Only a total overload would generate enough power to make the containment field permanent. Get everyone out, he ordered Elena. The station's evacuation pods should still work. Go. The deep city is evacuating critical sections, Xena reported. But someone has to remain at both ends to maintain the connection. Nikolai smiled, though no one could see it through his transformed suit. It's been an honor, Captain Xena. The honor was mine, Nikolai Petrov. As the station crew fled and the power cores began their final ascent toward critical mass, Nikolai thought about all the lives he'd saved over his career. This would be his last rescue, and by far his most important. The cores peaked, reality buckled, and everything went white. Light. That was all Nikolai remembered. Light so pure it seemed to erase the boundary between existence and nothingness. He had expected death, but this was something else entirely. When consciousness returned, he found himself floating in a chamber of living crystal, surrounded by the bioluminescent architecture of the deep city. His body felt strange, changed. The suit Xena had given him had done more than protect him. It had transformed him at a fundamental level to save his life. Welcome back, a familiar voice said. Xena stood at the chamber's entrance, her own suit bearing new scars and modifications. The quantum feedback should have killed us both, but it seems our suits had other plans. Nikolai moved experimentally, finding that his body responded with inhuman grace. The frozen ones. Contained, permanently this time, the feedback surge created something we never thought possible, a self-sustaining quantum prison they'll never escape again. She approached his chamber, her expression a mixture of wonder and concern. But the cost. The research station. Gone, along with a significant portion of the deep city's original power core. But your people survived. Dr. Volkov made sure everyone reached the evacuation pods in time. Xena's hand touched the crystal surface of his chamber. You should know that 3 months have passed since that day. The news hit him like a physical blow. 3 months, but how? Your body needed time to adapt. The quantum surge fused your suit's technology with your cellular structure. You're neither fully human nor Nautilian now, something in between, like me. Nikolai looked at her sharply, like you. Xena smiled sadly. Did you think I was born a Nautilian? I was once like you, a surface dweller who made a choice to protect both worlds. It happened centuries ago during another crisis that required adaptation. The chamber dissolved around him, allowing Nikolai to stand on his own feet. His new body felt powerful, balanced in a way his human form never had been. Through the vast windows of the medical facility, he could see the deep city being rebuilt, its structures growing and healing themselves. The council has been in session since the event, Xena continued. What we did, what we sacrificed, it changed everything. They voted to end the isolation policy. The surface world needs to be prepared if other threats emerge from the depths of space or time. And they want us to be the bridge, Nikolai concluded, understanding dawning. Because we understand both worlds. Yes, but the choice must be yours. Your old life could be restored. The technology exists to reverse the changes, return you to the surface as you were. Nikolai walked to the window, watching the interplay of light and life in the underwater city. He thought of his years as a rescue specialist, of all the lives he'd saved. But this was a chance to save countless more, to prevent disasters before they happened. I've spent my life pulling people out of danger, he said finally. Maybe it's time to start preventing them from getting into danger in the first place. He turned to face Xena. I'll stay, help build the bridge between our worlds. Her smile was radiant. I hoped you'd say that. There's something else you should see. She led him to a larger observation deck overlooking a vast construction project. The new Aegis Initiative, a joint training facility where selected surface dwellers will learn to work with our technology, prepare for threats that neither world can face alone. As they watched, teams of humans and Nautilians worked together, sharing knowledge and resources. The sight filled Nikolai with hope. Where do we start? There's a promising young rescue specialist in Norway. Reminds me of someone I once pulled from the ice. Xena's eyes twinkled. Feel up to a recruitment mission. Nikolai felt his new body respond to the prospect of action. the enhanced senses already reaching out to analyze their surroundings. Just like old times. Better, Xena activated her suit's full capabilities, the material flowing into its combat configuration. This time we're not just saving lives, we're saving the future. Above them, through the kilometers of ocean and ice, the aurora borealis danced in new patterns, quantum energies from the containment field creating displays of impossible beauty. To most surface dwellers, it would seem like a natural phenomenon. But Nikolai knew better now. It was a reminder of the barriers between worlds and the bridges being built to cross them. "Ready?" Xena asked, preparing for their ascent to the surface. Nikolai activated his own suit, feeling the power surge through his transformed body. The mission that had started with a rescue in the ice had become something far greater, a chance to unite two worlds, to prevent catastrophes before they happened, and to explore possibilities neither civilization had imagined. "Ready," he confirmed, and together they began their journey upward, towards a future where the line between savior and saved, between human and Nautilian, between surface and depths, had begun to blur. In the quantum prison between realities, the frozen ones dreamed their ancient dreams. But now, for the first time in eons, there were guardians powerful enough to ensure those dreams would never again threaten either world. And in the depths of the Arctic ice, a new chapter in Earth's history had begun, one written in the language of both worlds, by those who dared to cross the boundaries between them. The rescue specialist who had risked everything to save a mysterious woman in the ice had become something more, a bridge between worlds, a guardian of two realms, and proof that the greatest transformations often begin with a simple choice to help another in need. As they rose through the waters toward the surface, Nikolai knew that while his old life had ended in that moment of quantum fire, something far more extraordinary had begun. The light that should have killed him had instead illuminated a path to a future he could never have imagined, a future he would help build, one rescue, one bridge, one transformation at a time.